Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. I'm going to do a year in review series. I'm going to start out with this TRX4 LCG conversion based on the Injora LCG TRX4 chassis. I'm going to go through the mechanicals first, all the bits and bobs, then I'm going to go through the electronics, and then I'll go through the body with the 3D printed parts and whatnot. So long story short, this thing has been an absolute beast. I've had essentially no problems. So zero complaints. It drives awesome. I really like the way this thing drives. It's the LCG chassis just makes it a much better handling vehicle, and I like it just for bashing, to be honest with you guys. I haven't really used it for any hardcore crawling and definitely no competition crawling. I've just been out having fun with it, and it's a really, really nice driving crawler. I've got it set up to run a fairly high speed, at least 20 miles an hour. I'm not sure how much north of 20, but because it feels faster than it is, because it rolls over easy and whatnot. But I really like this thing. So spoilers, not a whole lot of problems. Now, that's probably to be expected, because the one big thing that some of you will be disappointed is I am running factory TRX4 axles and transmission in this. Now, the reason for that's very simple. I've said this many times, and I stand by my assessment. The Injora, the generic kind of clone TRX4 axles out of China, I don't have a problem with them. I have a set of the ones with the T-lock ripoffs, and I have a set of solid ones. And so far so good. They work fine. I have nothing to complain about. They're way cheaper, and yeah, as far as I'm concerned, nothing wrong with them. But, and this is what I've said quite a few times to anybody that's tuned in before, sorry for sounding like a broken record, but if you're going to beat on your crawler, if you're going to be hard on it, if you're going to abuse it, I would recommend going with the Traxxas stuff, because TRX4 axles and transmission are known for being very strong, difficult to break. If you're going to beat on it, probably spend that extra money, go TRX4. If you're going to be nice to it, not abuse it, not jump it, not run high speed, blah blah. Then go for the clone stuff. Or if you're just on a extreme budget, go for the clone stuff, because it's much cheaper. Now, the one thing that I would strongly recommend, if you're bashing, get the front axle for sure with the locking and unlocking diff. Why? Because the most likely part to break is the CVs on the front axle. That is a very common point of failure on cheap axles. Whether or not they'll break, hard to say, but that's a common point of failure. If the axle is unlocked, there's much less load on that CV shaft, right? So it is well worth having a locking and unlocking diff on the front. I run this almost all the time with the front unlocked, unless I'm doing some crawling, because, why break parts if you don't have to? It corners better, tighter turning radius, and you're much less likely to break parts. So that's my 2 cents worth. Now, as you can see, we'll move on to the drive shafts. This is a stock Traxxas drive shaft, and it's got some tape here just to keep the center thingamajiggy centered. And that's because I'm using 2 short ends. I believe normally it's a long and a short. I can't remember what the deal was. Obviously, I didn't have a long one handy. So I just put some tape on to keep the centerpiece from moving too far in one direction, because then you don't have a lot of bite, much more likely to strip it. I've had no problems, so clearly, it's not the end of the world. So I ran this one in the front, and I ran an Injora one on the back. No problems with the Injora one whatsoever. I've read some comments that these sleeves that lock the end in place have come loose, and these ones on mine, they spin fairly easily, and there's an O-ring in there that keeps it from moving. So it's definitely possible to get a defective one, and the only thing I can say is the people complaining either got a defective one, or they took it apart and didn't put it back together right, or who knows. Mine have worked absolutely beautifully. I've got the other one on another crawler, and I've had no problems at all. Lock tight your lock pins on the ends. Bob's your uncle. I mean, I've had zero problems. And the back end on this is fully locked up, and I'm running the Injora, the underdrive, in the rear, so the front is slightly overdriven to give it a tighter turning circle, running the underdriven Injora gears on the rear with a Traxxas locking spool. So no problems with those gears whatsoever. And again, I've read some comments from people saying that those gears packed it in very easily. They were not durable. And all I can say is I'm pretty sure those people did not know how to put things together properly. And if there was some play side to side, or if there was some play in the pinion, it wasn't meshing properly, that's going to destroy the gears. I've had zero problems with this. Everything fit together really nicely. Literally, I can't imagine why there would be a problem based on the experience I had. But obviously, if somebody's gears, came apart like melted butter, there was a problem. And I'm speculating probably a mechanic issue. Not a mechanical issue, a mechanic issue is my guess. I would think that out of the box, if you got a set that looked, like they were cosmetically not good, that'd be a tip-off. Usually, metal parts, if they look good, they are good. Who knows, right? But the bottom line is, I've had no problems, and that's the one thing I can say is that I've been fairly hard on these gears, and zero problems. I had the cover off not too long ago, and the gears look perfect. There's literally no sign of wear. So. And this has, a few hours on it, and mostly jumping and bombing around in the dirt, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. My take on it is that those Injora overdrive and underdrive gears are basically good. Drive shaft, basically good. The axles, again, I've had them in other crawlers, and they basically hold up nicely. The suspension on this, the links, it's worked absolutely beautifully. I got zero complaints. Trying to think here. The only thing that I had to do custom on this is it does not come with a steering link, so I made one. It's a 3D printed middle piece with just two link ends. These shocks, these Injora mountain shocks, they have billed these as their best shocks ever. I 100% agree. They are really, really good for $28 Canadian, so about 20 bucks US. That is a screaming good deal for these shocks, in my humble opinion. They are not world beaters. They're not by any means as good as, $100 shocks, $150 shocks. They would be unrealistic to think that they would be. They're pretty good. If you are not at the absolute top of the food chain looking for every ounce of performance, I would say get yourself a set of these. My approach to these is I put a glob of grease at the bottom, grease the shaft so that it's going to seal up the O-rings, hopefully nicely, and then I put in about a half a shock of oil. I don't fill them up all the way. I don't see the point. If you end up with a leaky one, it just makes more of a mess. These have not leaked. I've got 3 sets. None of them have leaked. They are money well spent, in my humble opinion, worth every penny. I have zero bad things to say about these shocks. They work really, really well. The only downside, remember to put some thread locker on the bottom, on the shock bottom, and so that it won't come loose. The most recent set that I ordered that came, I want to say a month and a half ago, something like that, I'm pretty sure they're actually Loctited, because not one of the bottoms could be turned loose by hand. So I just left them, and they're on a trail truck, so we'll see if they stay. The previous 2 sets, one I forgot and I actually lost the shock bottom, and the other set I believe I remembered and Loctited everything up nicely. So all you gotta do, a little bit of Loctite on your bottoms, and you'll be laughing. I've had absolutely no problems with anything else on these shocks, and for my money they work quite nicely. Let's see here. So adjustment wise, I have not made any changes to this since I put it together. I think it drives quite nicely. I'm more than pleased with it. So I had a quick look through this, and nothing's broken. Nothing seems to be suffering any ill effects. I have somewhere I saw somebody commenting that they managed to break the battery tray. I've been running a large battery, like a 5200 milliamp, either 2S or 3S. Vast majority of the running 3S, so a heavier battery. Lots of jumping, lots of rollovers. Mine has not broken. Now, the one thing I would recommend is I made the mistake of just using this battery tray, and one of my 3S batteries, soft pack, it was whacking against this post, and it actually got damaged to the point where it kind of looks like it's not safe. So I'm going to make probably a 3D printed battery tray stabilizer type thing to install in the back here, because I always run big packs. I highly recommend, if you're going to run a big pack, make sure that it can't hit anything if you're bashing the truck, if you're being hard on it. If you're running a small pack on the tray, I think you're probably okay. Even so, that's something to think about. Maybe this tray is not ideal, depending on what you're doing. I think if you're competition crawling, mostly slow, not really doing anything where it does more than a couple of little, smack, smack, smack rolling down a hill, I mean, you're probably fine, right? I'm talking, multiple rollovers, 2 feet in the air, zoom, crash, roll, roll, roll. That's the kind of thing that damaged mine. So that's something to pay attention to. Very small thing. I mean, to me, that's not a flaw with the product. That's a flaw with how I was using it. Oh, the only other thing, I did post my servo mount, and as I mentioned in the post on Thingiverse, it's not ideal. The geometry is a little bit off. I noticed the other day, actually, I had adjusted my suspension, moved it down a little bit to get just a hair more lift on the front for running these great big monster truck tires. And I didn't notice, but with this geometry the way it is, once this side was not able to drop down all the way because this geometry is a little bit off. The servo can actually come down about probably 5 millimeters, and that would fix the problem. And that's down to this servo mount being not quite kosher. So it needs a rework. That's definitely on me. I'm guessing that the Injora one is probably much closer to perfect positioning, if it isn't, basically as good as you can get it. So that is I don't know if that's a criticism. It's something to watch out for. However you mount that servo, make sure, check your clearance, check your geometry there. You want it down as low as you can, so that you get maximum suspension travel on this side. This side, the side that the panhard bar goes to and the link goes to, it can be held up by the range of motion of those links, right? So pay attention to that. So I think that's it for the mechanical stuff. So electronics wise, this thing has worked super, super well. So let's start with the chintziest, cheesiest stuff first, and then move our way through to the better stuff. These little micro servos, these what are they? Tower Pro micro servos. You see them all over the place. They're sold as Metal Gear. I've seen people complain that they didn't get Metal Gear ones. I checked these. Mine are all Metal Gear. I got a value pack. They were like $4 or $5 each, something like that, I think. Maybe 6. I'm trying to remember how many I got for $20-some. I want to say it was 6, so that'd be, I'd say $5 each. Super cheap. I've been running this thing all summer, probably hours worth of running for sure, and none of them have failed. To me, these servos are not terrible, and they work for the job, and you can get like 6 of them for the price of one, quote-unquote TRX4 compatible servo, right? So nothing to complain about there. I'm running this a dirt cheap Injora brushless motor. Now this is a 5200 kV one. The one in it is, I believe, a 3500 kV. Works really well. It gets the tiniest bit north of warm in hot weather. So well over 20 degrees, like say 30 degrees outside, 25 to 30 degrees outside, it gets warm. 15 degrees, it doesn't even begin to get warm. So gearing is an issue. How much you run in top gear is an issue. How much you're running wide open is an issue. I'm running it because I wanted speed. I wanted wheel speed. I wanted to bash this truck. So I went with with a speed setup, not a crawling setup. Now, for what it's worth, that 3500 kV Injora motor actually doesn't crawl bad with this Hobbywing 10BL120 ESC. So, you know, you pop it in low gear, it crawls nicely. You pop it in high gear, it's got really good top speed. I like this setup in this truck for this purpose. Now, if you want to run like competition crawling, something like a Hobbywing Fusion, the new FOC units with the really good low speed control, that's totally the way to go. They're about $100 Canadian, so slightly more than I spent on this combo, but totally worth it if you're competition crawling. For my purposes, I didn't really want that. I don't really like the all-in-one, because if the ESC fails, what do you do then? I don't know how serious a concern that is, but it's in my head. I don't like it. I just waterproofed this thing with some BL7000, I think it is. It's this. It's kind of like rubber cement type glue. Really easy to put on. Basically, I don't get things super wet, so I'm not concerned about any dust or water getting in there once I've hit it with that. So the motor, I'm running a heatsink. I had a fan on it for a little while. I took the fan off because it's cold out again. The ESC works just fine for my purposes especially, and I would say definitely with the 2-speed transmission for crawling it works just fine, because you can pop it in low gear, you got really good control. Even in high gear, it's not, you know, it's definitely not terrible. It's just, you know, it could be better. It's a compromise, right? I believe this is running a 10-tooth Traxxas pinion, if I recall correctly. I should probably just pop that cover off and verify that. So I'm running a 13-tooth pinion in this for a little more speed, obviously. So you can definitely gear this down a little bit more with a smaller pinion, and you would have more control for crawling. So there's definitely options with this. So that's little servos, ESC, motor. Servo is a cheap, not super fast, 25 kilogram Chinese servo. It's worth about $20 Canadian. I've had this one for a long time, had no problems with it whatsoever. What's that brand there? SPT, I think? SPT 5425 LV. As far as I'm concerned, decent servo. It's not super fast, so if you're looking for the absolute maximum speed side to side, this is not the servo for you. Durability-wise, it's been really good. No problems. Now, so I upgraded this year to the lovely Radiolink RC6GS. Somewhat comically, earlier this year I bought the RC4 GS because it was on sale, way too cheap to pass up. It was $58, I think. Smoking good deal. Then this bad boy came on sale, $90. Smoking good deal. And no regrets whatsoever. If you get the RC4 GS, the new version is actually a 5-channel radio, so you can use it and control everything you need. It's just a little bit hokey. If you go with the 6, it's now got 7 channels, so you can control everything just beautifully. Endpoint adjustment, perfect shifting, everything works just slick as a pig in poop. Love this radio. I wish I'd bought this years ago. It's the one thing I can legitimately say, oh, it's a stupid move to hold out as long as I did. It's a combination of things, and I tell you, bad judgment on my part. It's the one thing I wish I'd upgraded to. Really nice feature of these radios, if you got any small battery packs kicking around. Oops, the battery door cover's a little bit wonky, but you can put in a 2S LiPo and power it. All you need is a JST connector on the end. So if you're like me and you have batteries kicking around, well, that means you don't have to buy AA's anymore. Problem solved, right? It's got endpoint adjustment, dual rates, throttle curve. The only thing it doesn't have that would be nice is a reverse curve, specifically for crawlers. But otherwise, I love the radio. I have nothing but good things to say. If you are even remotely considering getting one and you're into the hobby fairly hardcore, I would definitely do it. I ordered a batch of receivers out of China off of AliExpress for, what were they, $16 or $17 Canadian each. They work great. That's the ones without the gyro. I bought 2 of the little micro ones with the gyro for $20 each to put into Go Fast cars. life is good. Works really, really well. I definitely regret not buying it sooner. I can't decide. I might sell the RC4 GS, but based on the price I got it for, I'm really thinking I'll just keep it on the shelf as a backup in case something goes wrong, because these radios are sweet. They're so awesome. I'm much more inclined to unload everything else I bought along the way. So servo, radio, motor, ESC, little servos. Is there anything else? Nope, that's all the goodies. This thing's been bulletproof. I've had literally no problems with it. Now, let's get on to the little 3D printed type stuff. You'll notice these nuts on the back, still in one piece. They've held up beautifully. The little washers have all held up really nice that I used to space the shocks and the links off of the chassis. The one downside, like I said, my servo mount, not quite ideal. My bumper, as you can see, it's been broken and welded. It's come off many, many times. Probably won't come off now when I want it. Oh, there we go. So it came off. It was glued on. It came off. It's been coming off regularly. I've been too lazy to fix it. My mount did break, but this was a PLA mount. Surprising. If you've seen how many times it's landed on the front, and that's all that's happened, it broke this edge off. That was a long time ago. I'm pretty impressed. This actually has held up much better than I thought it would. I for sure was expecting to print out a TPU one that's flexible and more durable. I have not yet had to. So you can definitely 3D print stuff and it works just fine. My whatchamacallit, inner fenders at the front, they work good. These mud flaps were just to expand it because trying to get them to fit perfectly and print them seemed like a waste of energy. So I got decent fit, and then I added mud flap material to keep as much dirt out as possible. This side, the mud flap stuff's coming off, but that's got nothing to do with the 3D printed part. That's all worked really, really nicely. I think that's it. There's not a lot of 3D printed on this, except when you get to the back cage. It's held up beautifully, zero problems. This is just welding from when I put it together. One thing that broke, mirrors. They both broke off. So my bit of advice, if you're running one of these Power Wagon bodies, if you're gonna bash it, take the mirrors off, keep them, don't let them get destroyed. The windshield wipers, I've done nothing to. They actually come off if you, well, they're fairly tight, but they will come off by themselves, but they haven't. They've taken, obviously no damage. The headlights are fine, as you can see. It's crashed many, many times. I got one crack going here that I got to fix. I've got an inside piece here to help it be a little more sturdy up on the front end of the car. It's held up fine. Again, I need to fix this crack before it gets out of hand. This goop, this caulking that I used to beef up the body seems to have done its job. I've had some crashes where, boy, it sounded like something bad happened, but I can't find any damage, so I think it's okay. I don't know what the crackling that I heard was, but I think it's held up fairly well. So, like I said, 3D printed stuff, good. This cheap Chinese body, plenty good. I really like it. It's my favorite. No complaints whatsoever. If you want the back half, you can hop on my Thingiverse and download it. I'll post some pictures in here. Works great. Zero problems. Love it. Now, tires. I have run different sets. This is the most recent ones I was running. I'd been meaning to do this for a long time, go out bashing with some cheap monster truck tires. Doesn't drive as well as I had hoped. I actually wouldn't recommend these just because of the way it drives. It seems to roll over much easier. I think it might just because the wheels are a lot lighter than metal wheels. Might also be because the wide tires on the front, they just grab a little too hard, and with the mass of the tire, it just kind of yanks and rolls the truck over. I don't know. It definitely rolls over easier with these than it does with narrower tires. These are like 25 bucks on Amazon. A lot of people complain about these wheels. I've run these on all kinds of four-wheel drive crawlers, and I haven't broken them yet. And you can see the hexes are in good shape. They fit nice and snug on everything I've used them on. Only downside, like I said, they didn't work as well as I would have hoped on this particular truck. Now, My next move is these bad boys, and I'm going to run them on some cheap beadlock high offset wheels. So the ones that have like the hexes way to the inside. So they're going to sit something like that. Going to give me a nice wide stance. These are fairly wide, as you can see. I think they should work really well. We shall see. I've had them for quite a while. I just haven't gotten around to running them. These were another one. They were on sale on Amazon for, what the hell was it? It was a hair less than $30. And I couldn't resist. And I just haven't got around to actually using them yet. They're really nice and soft. They look like they'll work super well in loose dirt, which I have in abundance where I live. So yeah, that's going to be my next move. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for this edition of Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive? See you next time.